The air in the crowded fellowship hall of the First Baptist Church of Cedar Springs, Texas, was thick with the cloying sweetness of punch and the humid press of community judgment, a suffocating blanket that seemed to seal Chloe's fate as she stood awkwardly beside the table of homemade pies, her hands nervously smoothing the fabric of her department store dress, the one she'd saved from her grocery clerk wages, for this very Sunday. Her heart a frantic bird trapped in her ribs because today, after the service, she would quietly tell her parents about her acceptance letter to the community college's criminal justice program. A fragile dream she'd nurtured in secret through long nights of studying after her shifts. A dream of something more. Of a uniform that meant something. But before she could even find the words, the scene unfolded like a pre-ordained tragedy. Her mother, Linda, a woman whose pride was as polished and sharp as the cross around her neck, was holding court by the coffee urn, her voice carrying over the murmur of the congregation, bragging about Chloe's older brother, Jake, home on leave from the army in his crisp dress greens, the epitome of everything their family, their town, valued: masculine service, visible honor, a uniform you could point to with pride. And as the pastor clapped Jake on the back, calling him a hero in the making, Linda beamed. But then her eyes, scanning the room, landed on Chloe, and the beam didn't fade. It just cooled into something more calculating, and she beckoned her over with a crook of her finger, a summoning that felt like a sentencing. And as Chloe approached, Linda looped an arm around her, not in affection, but in possession, and said loudly, for the benefit of Mrs. Higgins from the prayer circle and Deacon Miller, "And this is my Chloe, my sweet girl, still finding her way, working down at the food mart. Bless her heart." And the "bless her heart" was the dagger, the southern poison that meant the opposite. And Chloe felt a hot flush creep up her neck. But Linda wasn't finished. She gave a little sigh, a performance of maternal concern, and added, "She has these little ideas sometimes, bless her, about wanting to be something fancy. But I tell her, honey, not everyone is cut out for that life. You need a certain toughness, a certain respectability. You'll never wear a uniform anyone salutes. Your uniform will be an apron. Or maybe a nurse's aide smock if you're lucky, and there's dignity in that too, for those who can't aim higher." The words, delivered with the serene, unchallengeable certainty of a sermon, hung in the air, and the small circle of church goers offered sympathetic, pitying smiles that cut deeper than scorn, and Chloe's world dissolved into a blur of stained glass light and the smell of old perfume. Her confidence, a delicate thing she'd carried so carefully, shattered into dust right there on the linoleum floor, and she saw her father, standing with the men talking about football, glance over, and then quickly away, his silence a louder affirmation than any amen, and Jake just smirked, adjusting his uniform jacket, a living monument to everything she was not, and in that very public, holy place, surrounded by the entire ecosystem of her childhood neglect. The missed school awards they said weren't important. The dreams called. Silly phases. The constant, wary refrain of, "Why can't you be more like your brother?" Chloe experienced a total inner collapse. A silent implosion of self that left her hollow, a vase emptied of all its water. And the tears that welled were not of sadness, but of a profound, emptying shame, a helplessness so complete, she thought she might simply cease to exist under the weight of their collective, benign disapproval. And she didn't run. She just turned and walked mechanically out of the fellowship hall, past the bulletin board announcing potlucks and baptisms, got into her beat-up sedan, and drove, not home, but to the bus station on the edge of town, using every last dollar of her secret savings to buy a one-way ticket as far as it would take her: Seattle, Washington. a city of rain and reinvention that felt as far from Texas sun and certainty as another planet. And as the Greyhound pulled away from the flat, familiar horizon, her body was racked with silent, heaving sobs that stole her breath. Mourning the death of the girl, who believed she could earn love through quiet achievement. And somewhere in the dark soil of that grief, a seed of resolve, hard and sharp and unforgiving, began to germinate, a vow made not with fiery anger but with icy clarity. You will define the uniform I am fit for, but one day, you will see me in one that commands your silence, and you will understand nothing about the strength of quiet things. The journey across America was a numbing montage of rest stops and changing skies, a physical pilgrimage mirroring her internal unraveling and slow, painful knitting, and Seattle, when she arrived in the damp twilight, was a shock of towering glass and evergreen. A city that asked no questions and offered no comfort. Her first home was a bunk in a women's shelter. In the International District, the air smelling of stale cabbage and communal despair, her first survival job was cleaning bathrooms and mopping floors. In a sprawling tech company's headquarters, after midnight, the eerie, empty silence of the offices, a stark contrast to the humming servers that held worlds she didn't understand. The loneliness was a physical chill that seeped into her bones. Deeper than the pervasive Pacific Northwest damp, the hunger was a constant, gnawing companion, not just for food, though she often split a single cheap sandwich between lunch and dinner, but for a kind word spoken, without condescension, for a touch that wasn't accidental. The sleepless nights in the shelter, listening to the sounds of other women's troubled sleep, were filled with a relentless, whispering chorus of self-doubt. Maybe mom was right, maybe I am too soft, too quiet, maybe this is the ceiling of my life. Maybe the uniform of a janitor is the only one I'll ever wear. And the silent tears into the thin, donated pillowcase were her only nightly ritual, a baptism of salt and sorrow. But every morning, in the gray dawn that filtered through the shelter's high windows, she would rise, wash her face with generic soap, and meet her own tired eyes in the mirror, with a stare that gradually hardened from shattered glass to tempered steel. And she enrolled in a single-night class at the community college, paying in crumpled cash, studying American government, and introduction to law enforcement on her breaks, hunched over textbooks in the stark glow of a janitor's closet light. Her discipline born not from innate toughness, but from a desperate, focused fear of the alternative, a lifetime of being defined by that moment in the fellowship hall. A patient, grinding resilience built one scrubbed toilet, one memorized textbook page at a time. She moved from the shelter to a rented corner of a living room, in a shared apartment, with constantly rotating roommates, then to a basement studio that smelled of mildew and determination. Her social life was the library's quiet hum, her companionship the voices from audiobooks on jurisprudence and ethics checked out for free. Her family's infrequent calls were exercises in emotional distance. Her mother's voice always laced with that same syrupy concern. Jake's getting a promotion, such a leader. And you, Chloe. Still in that rainy city? You know, Betty's daughter is managing the diner back home. She could probably get you a waitressing spot, a real job. And Chloe would swallow the metallic taste of rage and reply in a flat monotone, I'm doing okay, Mom. Learning a lot. And she was, with a frugality and focus that would have been incomprehensible to the girl from Cedar Springs. She sacrificed every comfort, every distraction, wearing thrift, store sweaters until they frayed, eating bulk rice and beans, her world a narrow tunnel of work, study, and the long, punishing runs she took along the waterfront, building not just stamina but a tangible, physical fortress for her will. The slow, arduous accretion of knowledge and physical strength was her silent rebellion. Her transformation from a sensitive, dismissed girl into a woman of formidable, quiet intensity happened cell by cell. Her eyes, once wide with the need for approval, now held a watchful, analytical calm that missed nothing. And she earned her associate's degree with honors, a fact she told no one back home, and through a work-study program, landed a clerical job at the Seattle Police Department, a role that put her inside the fortress she longed to enter, and she absorbed everything like a sponge: radio codes, procedure manuals, the unspoken culture of the department, volunteering for extra duties, taking every civil service exam she was eligible for. Her reputation growing as the quiet, preternaturally reliable clerk who always knew the answer, who never gossiped, who handled frantic 9/11 transcripts and grieving families with the same steady calm. And she applied to the police academy, facing setbacks. Told she needed more life experience, more physical strength, but she persisted, her patience now her core philosophy. And on her second attempt, she was accepted, the grueling training a crucible that burned away the last of her softness, not her compassion, but her self-doubt. She learned to command her voice, to control her body, to wield authority not from aggression, but from unwavering competence. And she graduated, was sworn in, and received her badge and uniform. And the first time she put it on, the dark navy, the sharp creases, the weight of the duty belt, the shine of her nameplate reading, "Of FICR Melier," she stood in her small apartment, and did not feel joy, but a profound sense of alignment. As if a key had turned in the universe's lock, and she was finally fully in the right place. And her career on the force was a testament to her quiet way. She preferred patrols in complex neighborhoods, where listening was more valuable than shouting. She built rapport with shopkeepers and worried parents, her calm demeanor diffusing tensions that might have escalated with a more aggressive officer. She earned respect slowly, through 10,000 small acts of integrity and courage, responding to domestics with a firm protectiveness for the vulnerable, handling street disputes with a fairness that surprised everyone. Her authority was earned call by call. Her reputation as a cop who was smart and steady grew, and she specialized, becoming a detective in the financial crimes unit, her meticulous nature and patience perfect for untangling webs of fraud. Her quiet focus seeing patterns others missed, and she rose through the ranks. Her personal life a peaceful, private counterpoint, a small house with a view of water, a rescued dog, a few deep friendships with people who valued her for her steady presence, not her title. The wound from Texas now a fossil, a relic she could examine without pain, a reminder of how far she had traveled. And the opportunity for a greater challenge came when a federal task force on transnational financial corruption sought liaison officers from major city departments. And her captain recommended her, citing her analytical mind and unimpeachable ethics. And she found herself working alongside agents from the FBI, the Secret Service, and the Internal Revenue Service, her perspective from the street invaluable to their high-level cases. And it was here she saw the next uniform, the next level of authority and mission. And she set her sights on the United States Secret Service, not the glamorous protective side, but the investigative, mission-focused side of their work. And the process was brutal. A year of background checks, polygraphs, interviews, and intense physical and academic testing. But she passed, was accepted into training, and emerged as a special agent, assigned to the Seattle Field Office's Financial Crimes Task Force, her uniform now a suit of a specific cut, her badge federal gold, her mandate national in scope. And the day she completed her first protection detail for a visiting dignitary, standing post in her sharp suit and earpiece, a silent, vigilant symbol of the full authority of the United States. She felt the circle close, not with a bang, but with the satisfying click of a well-made lock, and her career flourished. She led complex investigations into currency counterfeiting and major fraud, her calm, methodical approach breaking open cases that had stymied others. She became a respected figure in the federal law enforcement community, her name spoken with professional regard. Her life one of purpose and quiet substance. Financial security born of a good salary and careful living. A deep sense of contribution to something larger than herself. And the moment of final, silent confrontation arrived not from any design of hers, but from the impartial hand of duty. As a major case involving a multi-state fraud ring, with ties to a televangelist ministry in Texas, required her presence for an evidence review at the federal courthouse in Dallas. And Agent Chloe Miller, in her dark professional suit, her badge on her hip, her posture radiating a calm, contained authority, was walking through the bustling marble lobby with an assistant U.S. attorney discussing subpoena protocols when she felt a familiar, stunned gaze upon her, and she turned her head, and there, near the security line, stood her mother, Linda, and her brother Jake, now out of the army, and looking paunchy in a cheap sport coat, clearly there for some minor legal matter of their own. And Linda's face underwent a transformation that was a masterpiece of dawning, horrific realization, her eyes darting from the federal badge on Chloe's hip to the sleek earpiece wire, to the respectful way the courthouse deputies nodded to her, to the absolute, unassailable confidence in her daughter's bearing, understanding in a devastating instant that the uniform she had prophesied, the apron, the smock, was nowhere in sight, replaced by the ultimate symbol of federal authority and respect. A uniform that represented not just a job, but a calling of the highest order. And the most profound revenge was the utter absence of anything Chloe needed to say or do. She simply paused, met her mother's eyes, and held the gaze for 3 long seconds, allowing her to absorb the full, crushing weight of her error, her lifelong misjudgment. And Linda's hand fluttered to her throat. Her face, usually so composed, crumpled like paper, her eyes flooding with tears not of pride, but of a profound, gut-wrenching regret. A sob escaping her lips as she understood that the daughter she had deemed unfit for honor had achieved a level of it that she could scarcely comprehend. And Jake just stood there, mouth agape, his own faded glory suddenly pathetic in the shadow of his sister's real achievement. And Chloe, after those 3 seconds, gave the faintest, most professional nod. A nod that contained no forgiveness, no gloating, simply an acknowledgement of truth now mutually visible. And then she turned back to the attorney, said, "Shall we proceed?" and walked on, her low heels clicking decisively on the marble, moving forward into her purpose, leaving the past behind her, shattered and weeping in a courthouse lobby. And as she rode the elevator up, a profound and peaceful closure settled over her. Not the hot thrill of vengeance, but the cool, clear serenity of a journey completed, of a self built faithfully, brick by brick, against all odds, and now standing, complete and unshakable, in the light of its own making. Her self-worth, once a fragile thing begged for in vain, was now the very foundation she stood upon. And she knew, with absolute certainty, that the loudest victories are not announced with shouts, but are earned in the silent, steadfast daily choosing of resilience over resignation, patience over panic, and the quiet, unyielding strength that comes from believing in yourself when no one else does. A testament to the truth that the most powerful uniform you will ever wear is the dignity you forge for yourself, stitch by patient stitch, in the quiet loom of your own unwavering spirit.